Hello everyone, my name is Taylor from Market Car, and today I'm going to show you 11 reasons why you need to buy an E39 5 Series right now. And I'm also going to show you 4 things that you should look out for when buying one. I've owned this particular E39 520D for 2 years now, and I'm really happy with my ownership experience, which is exactly why I think you should get one as well, so that you can be as happy with your car as I am with mine. Now, before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to this channel sponsor, and that's you. Thank you so much for 1,800 subscribers. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and watching the videos. Really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the video. I'll take you through the reasons from worst to best. And with that being said, let's move on to reason number 11. It's easy to work on. Now, the reason I say that is because this car was built in an age where engineers tried to simplify everything and make it as easy as possible instead of making you undo 50 bolts to change your oil. And the thing with this car is that it's so well documented on YouTube, you can pretty much find a tutorial on how to fix any specific issue that you have. Regular maintenance on this car is actually pretty easy to do, and the parts are both cheap and available, which means that this is a car that you can actually learn to work on instead of having to take it into service. And just as an example, I've recently watched a video of a Renault Scenic where to change a light bulb, you have to remove the actual headlight. Here it's just directly accessible underneath the hood. This car was really built as simple as possible to make it as serviceable as possible. Reason number 10, this car has a lot of modding potential. Now, of course, when you get your car, you want to make it your car, which is exactly why it's really nice to have a car that has a lot of mods readily available for it. And this car is truly like no other in that regard because there are millions of mods out there. I think this might be the most moddable car out there. Just as an example, I did the LED Angel Eyes mod, and I updated the grille, and I replaced the badges, and I fixed the headlight adjusters. And that's only things on the front end that I can point to right here. If that's not enough for you, I recently made a video of 50 mods that you can do on this car, and I still have mods left over for a part 2. Number 4 thing you want to look out for when buying one of these is to check if all the lights work. And I don't mean the headlights, I mean like the check engine light. Now here's a story. When I was buying this car, I knew I wanted an E39, but I wanted one with no check engine lights. I didn't want to deal with that. When your car has a check engine light, it's basically a project car. I wanted one that I could just get in, drive, it's gonna run perfect. So I go to check this one out, and I look on the dash. In the pictures, it didn't have a check engine light. I was so happy. I bought it, and then I was pretty much in ignorance is bliss mode for the next 2 years, when just a couple of weeks ago I saw a post on Reddit. Someone said, "Hey guys, my check engine light isn't turning on when I turn the key." And I was like, huh, that's weird. Who? And that's when I learned that people disconnect the check engine light when it goes on. I could not believe this. So I went in my car, I turned the key, and lo and behold, the check engine light doesn't actually turn on. Guys, make sure, please make sure, when buying one of these, make sure that the check engine light and all the lights on the dash actually turn on. Now, of course, try to get one as with close to 0 lights on as possible, but just make sure that they all work. Reason number 9, it's pretty powerful and it has tuning potential. Now, right here I have the 520D model, which was pretty much the lowest power model you could get with 136 horsepower. And I have to say, this thing is a blast to drive. I love driving it, and it actually has enough power so that you can overtake someone and even do some spirited driving. Now, I mentioned tuning potential, and of course, this is going to be model dependent, but just as an example, this specific model can get from 136 horsepower to 166 horsepower with just a tune. And the tunes aren't really that expensive, and I haven't tuned it yet, which just speaks to how much fun this car is to drive stock. Now, of course, if you get one of the more powerful models, you're basically going to have a blast of a time. I cannot imagine how fun it must be to drive this car in the M5 version with 400 horsepower. Reason number 8, it's reliable. Now, my specific car right here has around 390,000 kilometers, which is a lot. And to be honest, I haven't had a lot of issues with it in my 2 years of ownership. The only real mechanical problem I've had was the turbo, which was bad when I bought it. And ever since that was fixed, I've had pretty much 0 mechanical problems. Now, of course, as with any 20-year-old car, you are going to have to do some maintenance just based on the fact that the car is 20 years old. You know, the usual stuff like bushing, suspension, wheel bearings. But the main thing is that mechanically, this car is basically perfect. And just as a side note, in the 520D with the M47 engine, there were actually no swirl flaps. I was told that by a commenter. Thank you for that. So then realistically, the only thing you have to worry about is the turbo, which I've also been told that with regular maintenance, which someone has avoided to do, you shouldn't really expect to have a problem. Number 3 thing that you should look out for when buying one of these is to check for rust and vapor barrier leaks. Now, rust, of course, every car is going to have a bit of rust, especially after 20 years. Usually around the wheel arches, like I've got a bit right here, a bit right here. Most of this is fixable. Make sure it doesn't have any rust on the actual underbody of the car. Make sure you get that checked because you don't want a rusted out one. If it has rust, don't buy it. And the second thing is vapor barrier leaks. Now, the vapor barrier is actually a seal in the door which prevents water getting inside of the car. And what happens is sometimes this vapor barrier breaks, or it gets damaged, or it gets removed for some reason. And this creates a big problem because then you get mold in your car. To check for this, basically open up the doors of the car and make sure there's no water or mold that you can see building up either in the footwell or right here around the door frame. Thankfully, mine are still intact, but just keep this in mind. If the car you're going to buy has a funny smell, or even if it smells too amazing, maybe the owner sprayed deodorant to cover up the mold smell, don't buy it, guys. You don't want mold in your car, and you don't want a car that's completely rusted out. Reason number 7, it's cheap to own. Now, as I've already mentioned, parts for this car are very readily available. Maintenance isn't that big of a deal. Maybe you can DIY some stuff. And for this specific model, the fuel consumption isn't that bad either. I usually get 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which is this many miles per gallon. And when you think about it, that's really not that much for a car that's as fun to drive as this car is. So cheap parts, great reliability, and pretty okay fuel consumption. That's exactly why I'd say that this car is pretty cheap to own, and in my personal experience, it has been just that. I haven't really had to put that much money into the car, and I'm sure that would have been even more true if I'd gotten one that was a bit better taken care of. That's a lesson for you. Also, in some countries, there are additional costs that you're going to have to pay based on how new your car is and how powerful it is, which is exactly why this car is perfect, because it's really old and it's not that powerful. So your taxes and registration are going to be really cheap. Reason number 6, it looks great. And this is one of those that you can't argue. This is one of the best looking BMWs ever made, if not one of the best looking cars ever made. I absolutely love this design. I love the angel eyes. I love the LED taillights. The whole shape of the car just looks amazing. BMW really knew what they were doing back in the day. And this is just a perfect example of BMW design. You cannot find a bad angle of this car. It looks great from every single angle. And this is just the base model. The M-Tech package makes it look even better. Guys, you know we're not buying this car just because it's cheap and reliable. We're buying it because it looks great. Reason number 5 to get an E39 is that it's practical. Now, right here, I'm sitting behind myself, my driving position where I would usually sit at, and I have a lot of leg room right here. And I have a lot of headroom even with this falling ceiling right here. And I'm like 6'4", 195 centimeters. I'm really tall. And I still have a lot of room, even sitting behind myself. I've had 5 people in this car. The middle seat is actually very usable. And you really wouldn't expect it to be this roomy in the interior, but it really is. And it also has great space in the trunk. I use it all the time. I put my electric scooter in there. I transport my lawnmower in there. It's crazy how much you can actually fit in this car, and you can also option fold down rear seats, which gives you even more room. Maybe if you want to go to IKEA or you got one of those 70-inch TVs. And if you need even more space, you can get the touring version for all your watermelons. By the way, just as a side note, you can get this car with a tow hook in case you want to tow your sailboat behind you. Number 2 thing to look out for when buying one of these is to make sure you get the facelift version. Now, around 90% of the reason why you want the facelift version are these LED taillights. These are one of the best taillights ever made for a car. When you get the pre-facelift, you get the orange on top. The taillights aren't actually LED. Looks horrible. Not only does it look horrible from the back, but it also looks horrible in the front because the pre-facelift headlights don't have the angel eyes, which you can make LED. Now, of course, all of those reasons are cosmetic, but one of the real reasons why you should get a facelift is all the features that the facelift version has. The thing with the E39 model is that basically ever since they started building them, every year it got something new. And when you get the facelift, you guarantee that you got all those things that the previous models didn't have. Stuff like dynamic stability control, rear airbags, better onboard computer, stuff like cornering brake control. These are all great safety and luxury features of this car that, of course, you can maybe get in the pre-facelift, but if you just get the facelift, you will pretty much get all of them. Reason number 4, it will rise in value. Now, I'm not only saying this because I own one, I'm saying it because basically any used car after around 20 years old, it loses most of its value. There is pretty much zero depreciation left on it. Now, the thing is, old BMWs, especially ones that are kept well, unlike mine, hold their value really, really well. So up until now, they've been holding their value, but my prediction is that now they will start to rise. Guys, just take a look at what happened to E34s. You cannot find a good E34 5 Series for less than an E60 5 Series. A lot of these cars were neglected, crashed, scrapped. Basically, people gave up on them. But the thing is, just like Doug says, now people who have had this car on their poster on their wall when they were growing up have the money to buy one, and they want a really nice one, which is exactly why they'll pay a lot of money for it. In summary, basically any one of these is as cheap right now as it's going to get. It is never going to get cheaper than this. And this is really great because you can buy one of these, enjoy it for a few years, and then sell it not at a loss, but maybe even at a profit. Reason number 3, it has great build quality, amazing features, and a luxurious interior. Now let's start off with the build quality. Everything in this car feels quality, every single thing, and nothing rattles. There are no rattles when you get in the car. It's one of the most amazing things because when you're used to cheaper cars, you go in there, you're used to everything rattling. In here, everything is solidly built, and the most amazing thing is that you get the feel that someone thought about designing this car. They didn't put this switchgear accidentally. Somebody thought about it and they made it perfect. Now, when it comes to luxury features, this car debuted with some of the most amazing tech ever. First of all, it has 6 airbags just for the front passengers, and I think you can get it with 10 airbags in total. Now, airbags are cool, but what's even cooler are the systems that make you not crash in this car. I have personally had my ass saved by the dynamic stability control in this car far too many times to count. I love it. It's amazing. And in this car, there's also a feature called cornering brake control, which basically adjusts the braking force in each wheel based on how the car is turning. I literally don't know how that works. That's whoever designed that probably had an IQ higher than Einstein's. But anyways, it saves your ass a lot. I love driving this car just because of how safe you feel while you're inside. And I love the electronic systems that limit your power when it detects that the car is about to start sliding. And finally, let's move on to the luxurious interior. And I've talked about this a lot, but look at this, guys. There's leather seats. There's leather on my door panel, and there's wood trim everywhere around the car. Your armrest is leather, your steering wheel is leather. It's so nice to be in here, and especially if you get one with the electronic seats and the heated seats. Like, this is really luxurious even for today's standards. Reason number 2 to get an E39 is that it sounds great. Now, even though this is pretty much the worst model that you can get, the 2-liter diesel, it still sounds pretty good, and this is with the stock exhaust. So just like I said in my mods video, you can modify this exhaust to hell and it's going to sound even better. Let's take a listen. You heard it right there. I think it sounds pretty good for a 2-liter diesel. And of course, this is just the beginning. You can get it to sound much, much better. And you can, of course, get a model that has higher displacement. Maybe it's a V8 instead of an inline 4. It would sound absolutely amazing. The number one thing to look out for when buying one of these is you want to get one with a lot of options. High cluster, electric seats, automatic headlights, heated seats, upgraded infotainment, shadowline trim, M-Tech package, and parking sensors, just to name a few. The thing with these cars is that a lot of them, especially the lower models like the 520D, came in the poverty spec, pretty much zero features. You still get cruise control, I think, on all models, but the thing is, you want more than that. This car is going to be so much nicer to drive when you know you have everything that it has to offer. So what I recommend you do is go on the forums, find out what options you could get, and then try to get a car that has as many of those options as you can. Think about how nice it would be to cruise in your E39 with your electric seats, heated seats, don't have to do anything. You've got the infotainment, high cluster, parking sensors. Get all of those. Okay, now, without a doubt, the number one reason why you'd want to get an E39 is because it's really, really fun to drive. I love driving this car. Every single second that I'm in this car, I have a smile on my face. It's, even though this is the lowest model on paper technically, I still love driving it so much. You can actually go fast in this car. Just because it only has 136 horsepower doesn't mean it's slow by any means. I love having this car in a manual. I cannot imagine how boring it must be to have one of those 4 or 5 speed automatics in this car, because this is truly a car that you buy to enjoy to drive, and you don't want an automatic shifting for you. Oh my God, it's so amazing. I don't know if I am expressing it enough, just how nice it is to drive this car. You know, this car was made 20 years ago, and it really shows that they made it so that people would enjoy driving it. BMW's slogan back at the time, I think it was ultimate driving machine, and they truly made the ultimate driving machine. As you saw by how dirty the car was today, the weather is getting pretty bad in Serbia right now, and I think I heard we're getting some snow next week, so maybe I can make a video sliding this thing around. Let me know if you want to see that. So those were my 11 reasons why you should get an E39. I hope I've inspired you to make a purchase. Leave a comment if I did. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.